microphones have patterns, okay? And generally, I don't think trying to get into teaching all the patterns. This is basic 101 stuff you can find on the web or in the Audio-Technica handbook that they give out. But it's a shotgun, so the farther you get away from the mic, it starts opening up the pattern. It gets wider. When it's really close, the pattern's tight. As you step farther, or if you get farther away, it opens up. So if Aaron and I were sitting here talking, ideally we want to get up and over, and maybe even back off a little bit so it's wide enough so both of us are in the patterns. Trust your ears. Always be listening, or let the sound guy. You'll know when you're in the pattern and when you're not. I should have thought about brought it in gear, and we could do examples of this. But there's this microphone. All microphones have what I call a sweet spot. You're either in the pattern or you're not, and you can always distinguish this by your ears. You can tell when somebody's off mic. I guess the best example for this would be, you guys can hear me right now. This is a very tight pattern when you're with a handheld mic, but if I start talking over here, I'm out of the pattern. I'm back in the pattern here, and I slowly drift away as the mic. It works that way with all microphones, although the shotguns have a longer reach and a wider pattern.
You also want to be careful and be mindful of where you're pointing it, because you might be pointed at me over here, and then there's this noise obstacle. If we can't get it shut off,
yeah,
you know, it's going to bone everybody. So.
And so you might work the mic around. Now, generally the guys, Doug Cameron, which is probably one of the top 10 boom guys I think in the U.S. that works with me. Yeah, Doug does this. He cues. So when I speak, he goes back and forth like this. But Doug memorizes the dialogue and follows, and he knows he can give a whole
this is
seminar on booming. Yeah, there's an art to that.
This is typically how we train our boom ops on even at the dirtiest, cheapest production. Learning to follow we're going to do a rehearsal.
Rehearsals are
remember the remember who's talking and when they're talking. Get used to that and make sure to aim at their mouth.
Yeah, and what Doug does is, and what most boom operators do, they don't learn all the dialogue. They learn the first line and the last line of every cue. So then they know where to go back and forth. And then also, Doug can talk about how actors do certain things when they're about to speak. They'll make certain movements or certain eye, mouth, head, and that's his cue that they're about to speak, to pick up the next line. One thing that will be important with being directors and filmmakers is about what they call overlapping. I guess the best example of overlapping would be
sorry. If I interrupt you right
now. Yeah, but Woody Allen movies, everybody always overlapped everybody in most of his movies. And the way that you have to mic that to be able to make it work, you either have to have everybody individually mic'd or multiple booms out there and it all mixed together. But the thing that overlapping is fine to talk over each other when you're both on camera, when we can see both of our lips moving. Okay, that's fine. But when you get into coverage, doing single shots where only one person's on camera, you want it clean. And the very simple reason why you want it clean is you can overlap it later, because you're going to record his lines clean, you're going to record my lines clean, and then when you edit, then you have control. You can decide where they interrupt or where they talk over each other. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But that gives you more control later on in post-production.
Yeah, your actor should be able to respond to someone who's not speaking. Yeah.
So that's in your editing software, and I've seen it done before, but I didn't understand what it was doing. Is that where they take the audio and they just scoot it over?
Right. Yesterday, what you saw, were you here yesterday?
Yes, yeah, I was.
So yesterday, what I took was that WAV file, and I split it up several times, and I matched the dialogue. Now, if I had two WAV files, they would be on top of each other, and they would just multiply in, so the audio would just add up on each additional layer. And you could basically have his audio on one track, another person's audio on another track, and that's best so that you can equalize them separately. And they will just basically run at the same time, just like having two tape recorders and playing them at the same time.
Yeah. And getting back to finishing up the booming, okay, the whole idea is boom from above, can't boom from above, you go below. So then you can point out between. If the camera was looking up or seeing the ceiling, or you're in a low ceiling where you could not get a mic in, you would boom from below. But when you start booming from below, you're gonna get a deeper sound. You're gonna get chest. Okay, you're all of a sudden picking up the resonance of people's chest, and it does change the sound a little bit. It actually, in my opinion, sounds great, but you can't have to sing this way, half that, although we do sometimes when we've gotten caught or for some reason couldn't keep the mic overhead. But it does change the sound a little bit. it.
This
Because-
matters when you're doing your shot, when your shot design. If you've got a room that's really, really small, you gotta think about how you're doing the sound in there. Because the boom, needs space above the camera. You need to have people watching, again, the director needs to watch the video, not the actors. He needs to watch the actual monitor, the live output, so that he can see if that boom is in there. That's it.
Well, the camera operator should be responsible for that too.
Or
in
your-
my
your
opinion. The
camera
director
assistant.
should be worried about what the actors' performances are. And let whoever's plugging the eyepiece be concerned about that, but that's, anyway, depends on how big of a crew you got, I guess, or whatever. But then if you can't do it from above or from below, then sometimes we try to plant a mic, and sometimes you can fix a mic between two people, or hide a mic. The term plant mic came from them hiding microphones in plants in the early talkies. And one thing that Hunter brought up earlier, David Warner of Warner Brothers, famous quote, I now have it on the side of my sound card, is, "Who the hell wants to hear an actor speak?" That's been the talkies were coming around, and I always thought that is such a great quote, especially for a sound man to have.
Singing in the Rain, of course, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Singing in the Rain is all about the nightmares of early sound. And it's probably pretty instructive if you want to know about some of the nightmares that you'll face as you're learning this stuff. But yeah, there's a whole gag about on mic, off mic in there, because there's an actress that keeps turning her head away to deliver her alternate lines, and some of her lines are really loud.
But plant mics, and they make some additional mics. Sanken has a series called the Cubs, which are little mics, and they're true condenser mics, and they're about size of a 50-cent piece, roughly, and very small. They'll actually have a company building a real windscreen for them.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. I'm getting the prototype hopefully next week.
Is that CUB Cub?
Yeah, Cub. Yeah, and
Sanken?
Sanken's made by Sanken in Japanese.
Cub 01.
Cub 01, yeah. And we use them. It's really hard to do sound in cars these days, doing car work, because all the studios, everybody has to be politically correct, and everybody has to wear seatbelts. And of course, everybody should wear seatbelts. But if you put a wireless mic on somebody, their seatbelt's going right across their clothing, right across their wardrobe, and it's hard to get it quiet without clothing.
Right, and even if it doesn't, you'll hear them slide, and
Yeah,
that slide
move
is
around.
louder than anything else in the car.
And
So-
that's one of the problems with Bob's, of course.
Yeah, so we'll attach the cups to the ceiling and to the visors to pick them up, or we'll put other plant mics down in front of them and that type of thing.
I came up with an idea of using those koozies that you constantly got at rock shows or whatever, and you put some more foam in that koozie, and you put a mic inside the koozie, and it kind of makes it shock resistant. So
Beer mic.
a beer.
For the car, a beer mic for the car.
But anyway, and then of course the other way is to wire somebody, but those are your basic ways. Boom, boom, overhead, underneath, a plant mic, a wireless on them. But those are the basic ways that we gather the dialogue. Every now and then there's a new creative way, but that's the basics. Any questions about covering that part of it?
Yeah, as a lot of people, this is their first time ever. There's been a bit of touch on handling noise and cloth noise and some of these other noises that can get in there. Of course, if you don't have a real boom pole with a shock mount, you can't boom because you get all this noises. So y'all want to have a talk real quick about handling noise and cloth noise, just so they're aware of it and can figure out what it is that's coming in.
Yeah.
See, I'm just playing with the cable.
The best thing is to just be aware of it, because most of it.
Travels
that's
all the
what
way to the
that's what
mic.
I want.
You just gotta listen for it and be aware that it happens. I'll shut up. See?
But basically, even just having my fingers on this is still making sound come out. And this mic is not that sensitive compared to a boom mic, so you can imagine what it would sound like on a boom mic.
It's really amazing how much sound a tap on that wire is, even 8 feet away from the actual microphone, because it is traveling.
Anyway, number one, the booms most of them are constructed out of carbon fiber and lightweight material. Some of them have gone back to making aluminum boom poles, lightweight aluminum boom poles, because they're much cheaper. Carbon fiber ones are very expensive. I mean, minimum $400 or $500. That's just for a boom pole. no microphone or no, yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So some of them start making aluminum boom poles again. Yes?
Just curious about, what about doing stage when you can't afford wireless mics for everyone? Like a stage production?
Well, before wireless mics, they had the stage mics down on the floor, which are very sensitive and work well. They're highly directional.
They're PZM type microphones.
Yeah, and you just had to, your actors had to know their audio cues as well as their lighting cues to deliver certain lines and stuff. The quieter ones, you come forward on stage, because I remember working in that period. But
If you also look on stage now, they've got some tiny mics.
yeah,
you
they
cross
use
it.
these black spider webs hanging down, and they're actually microphones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the same as the lav type microphones.
Well, they're actually a little better than that, and
Yeah.
a little wider pattern, and you'll see them in choirs at churches and everything like that too, yeah.
Could you give us a
They're about
product
the same
example
size.
of that?
I'm sorry?
A product example of that, one of those elements?
I don't deal with that line, I mean, in my work, but I can tell you who to call and who to ask about it.
Okay.
Yeah, true, yeah, call the guys up at True Audio, but it would be a great thing. All right, who else was going around the room? Who else? Yes?
Could you guys give us a list of all the audio equipment that we should bring for a shoot?
You know what? I've got a 28-foot trailer full of audio equipment. I
Oh
carry
my,
it to a shoot.
okay, for a super low
I'm
budget.
sorry, being funny. No, your basics. Your basics. You would want a boom pole. Okay, and on the boom pole, you'd want a shock mount. And that mount, some of them are universal, and some of them are designed for certain models of mics. Okay.
Audio-Technica makes one for most shotguns or most.
Yeah, it's
interior
kind of
mics.
universal.
It's like $60 or $70 most places.
Yeah.
They're affordable, and you also can find used shock mounts
Yeah.
and in good shape. You typically have to replace whatever stands in for the diaphragm, and it can be literally, depending on the design, it can be literally the hair breadth sort of things. What happens is you've got two circular or two hoop sort of things, and you've got a diaphragm in each of them. Some of them are solid
right
rubber.
there.
Some of them are solid rubber. Some of them are like rubber bands that make a double X, and you just wedge the mic in there. But the point is, studios are all the time throwing these things. They're all getting rid of them, upgrading, changing boom holes, changing microphones.
Yeah.
And they'll find them in the audio bin in their stage, and they're like, oh, we can get rid of one or two of these. So just look on eBay and
Yeah,
Craigslist.
but Audio-Technica makes a universal one.
Yeah. And-
But you're going to want a boom mic, boom pole, shock mount, wind protection. You got to have some type
Yeah,
of wind
and
protection.
squirrel.
Yeah, and I'll leave it up for you to decide if you're doing an interior or exterior shoot. If you're doing interior, just a foam windscreen is usually fine for interior. If you're outside, you're going to have to get into what they call the Ryco type series.
This will do.
Yeah. But
No, it actually will.
it really is trouble. It really is trouble. That's great.
Actually, the treble looks more like
This is what a Ryco looks like.
It's usually gray or black, but it looks something like that. They might be long, they might be short, but they go on the boom poles. But yeah, that's exactly, it looks like a triple.
So you get that those noises then?
No,
That took a long.
no. But occasionally you'll hear the mic purr when you put the triple on. Yes.
Do the dead cats help at all inside?
Dead cats? Yeah, they can if you're doing big swings or dealing with wind. But you got to remember, you need to use a professional windscreen because you're covering up your mic, and the Ryco and the Rhodes and the other people that make these windscreens are making them, designing them where they don't affect the frequency response of the dialogue. Okay? Because you can't just sit there and cover up a mic and there not be repercussions from it. So you want to use what they professionally design. This young man's had his hand up for a long time. Yes, sir.
So when Doug is working in the room,
Right.
he has headphones on.
Oh, yes, he does. Yes.
Is there
Unless he's in
someone-
New York.
Do you have a secondary
Unless he's in Europe.
listening to the overall audio that's not really paying attention?
Yeah, the sound mixer is, and the boom operator are generally always listening. The boom operator has to hear his cues and that, and we also communicate through that. That's kind of a fancy system, but you've got two people that are listening generally. You've got the guy recording, and then you've got the boom operator. And then, you know, if you have other headsets out, other people are listening. I mean, usually when I'm working, there's 12 or 14 people listening. But they're not listening for planes or cars or noises. They're listening to what the actors are saying, you know, the director and the producers
Yeah,
and those people.
And it is possible as the director, the camera operator, to be so intent in listening for dialogue that you don't hear the train. That's why.
Yeah,
no
they'll
kid
get
is-
so focused in tunnel vision, they won't hear that plane or that came by. Although I just worked with one director that was very sensitive to sound, you heard somebody move on the stage or anything, who was that? Who was moving? Stop. You know, he was very, and I really liked that. It made my job a little easier.
Yeah.
We did a project some time ago, and as we're listening to the audio, somebody said, "What? Fireworks? When did the fireworks go off?" You know, yeah, there were actual fireworks going off outside, and everybody was so intent on listening to the actors that there was actually fireworks going off, and nobody noticed, and they're loud.
I don't see how a sound person couldn't do that. Yeah, I don't know. Who else had questions? Yeah, back there in the green shirt, yes.
If it's your first time using a boom pole,
Yeah.
do you want a back brace? Or
No, you know, there's a whole art to
I
booming.
guess is my question.
I wish I had a boom pole. And, you know, next year when I do this panel, I'll bring some better props.
Yeah, I always laugh when they talk about how, oh, this boom pole's super light. It doesn't matter how light it is. After a while, it just kills you.
Yeah, two things about booming. Don't lock your arms. Some people lock their arms, and it's really funny. And, you know, the first time they're booming, their knees start giving out. Those arms stay locked all the way down. But keep your arms loose. Booming, it's learning how to, you know, turn and operate, and learning how you can move your hands. Because once you put on a set of headphones and listen, you know how you can slide your hands and move, and where it's sensitive and where it's hypersensitive. And it's all about fluid movement. You're never jerky. It's all fluid.
And there's a different set of muscles that you'll
Yeah,
be
and you don't have to be the tallest guy. I mean, Hood Kuzak, who's a mixer now, but she boomed and she was only about this tall. I mean, she had to use a ladder and apple box sometimes to stand on, but she always did a great job.
It really is. It's and once you find somebody that's got the aptitude for it, it's great because you know they're always working it out in their head. I mean, because I know Alan does it for me and Doug does it for you, but it's just the whole idea of because it's not just holding the pole; it's also avoiding the shadows.
You have to know about lighting.
Yeah.
You have to know for every light that's on a set, that means there could be a shadow. So
You also have to know about lenses.
You have to know about lenses and sizes. You know, generally, you guys would be working with zoom lenses and not prime lenses. Which does everybody understand the difference? A prime is a fixed lens. So if they put up a 50 millimeter, it's a 50 millimeter zoom lens. They could change. They could zoom in, zoom out on you. But if you know the camera's got a 50 millimeter lens up, you know, and it's 8 feet away from the person, it's probably going to be a medium shot like this. But they know their lenses and frames, and they know lighting. That's the big boom operation. But the thing about it is having to operate the boom, you'll learn what muscles to use, and it's just practice. It's just not something you're going to learn overnight. But anybody can do it. Some people have worn a back brace, to get back to your original question, but most of the guys I know that have been doing it for 20 years or more, or Joe Brennan, who's in his 60s still doing it. He's got great stories. He did, I'd love for him to come and speak. He did all of John Carpenter's films, Halloween on, and talking about The Thing, and when they made the, oh yeah, he's got great stories, but Joe's worked with me, awesome guy. He's in his early 60s and still booming.
He's tired before you back
Yeah.
early on.
Yes?
I got two questions.
Yeah.
One, like the resounding theme throughout a lot of these panels has been to rent your equipment. Don't buy. Would you, as if you're an independent filmmaker, is audio equipment a better investment than the other types of equipment, or is it or should
Here's the thing. What's your goal? What you're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to, do your film on the weekend, on your own term, on your own times? Are you going to set up and say, I'm going to shoot for a week, and I'm going to, make my movie then? Or this is a project that's going to be drug out for 6 months? I mean, I've got one friend, Tripp, who's still working on his film for how many years?
My goodness,
3 years or whatever, 4 years, I don't know. And, look at what your goals are. If there's any way you can wrangle somebody into doing the sound for you, one of the up-and-coming sound guys or something, or somebody trying to learn the craft maybe a little bit that's smart and has some gear, that might be the way to go. Purchasing gear is always tricky of what to purchase and how much to purchase. Who's going to operate the gear? Are you going to operate it, or you get your cousin that's, in school to, I don't know, to do something to operate it for you? So get somebody with their own gear, I think is a great idea. But
if you're dealing with price ranges where you would have to rent instead of buy, then you're dealing with equipment that needs to be operated by someone who really knows what they're doing. When you're talking about like a Zoom H4n, that's $250, $275, whatever, and that's going to be attached to a microphone that's about $175. That's stuff that you buy and you have, or that your sound guy hopefully buys because he wants to do sound. And so at the out-of-pocket budget range, you're buying that stuff. It's different with lenses. Lenses are $700, $800, $1,000, but you can rent them for $35 for a week or something like that from Borrow Lenses. Yeah, do that. But when you're talking the low end of sound, buy that stuff, have it.
Yeah, that's the basics. Also, a lot of the companies now have DSLR sound packages that you can go to one of the sound houses and rent what they call a basic package to go with a DSLR.
It's got
type
the little
setup.
beach type box for the cameras.
Yeah,